somebody, Judy.
You didn't like that suggestion? If it would just look like a regular sweater without your logo on it.
It's not the logo that I'm worried about.
What are you worried about?
Oh, it just doesn't look good.
I don't think that we have a high definition camera.
The chief of the fire department gave me this shirt.
What's wrong?
She came and made salad and stuff out of my garden. She came back. She stayed one time, then came back. She stayed another time. And brought a bottle of rum. And we had, because she knew I had my garden and all this stuff. It was fun.
I told you I would give you the most up-to-date vote count I could get, but I couldn't get it.
There's my competition out here.
No, the ones I listed were this morning.
How are you, buddy?
Water floats all boats.
I know.
And so,
I have a lady supposed to come today, but she canceled
having
because of the
talked to
weather.
people, I think he's the one that closed it before we want to put in.
So he got this, who's this person?
You're doing a whole different kind of operation
Bangor
now.
in, they have like
Yeah.
So he's in.
Yep, so,
We have choices
Yeah.
between.
Summer, I had the best summer ever.
Me too.
well, you could pick any one, but the four that I sent, I would be best for right
I had some
now.
really cool people.
This one.
Problem is, they heard about Tom, and then once they heard about Tom,
You want to come over?
they don't come anymore.
So-
This guy is so
Thank you. I had to.
Or come out.
Yeah, well, and
But I
I
can't remember what they were when I don't have my
Do you need a packet?
well, either that or Robbie has something too. It's supposed to be.
Robbie does?
Robbie does, yeah. I was-
Let me go see if I can find it for you real
Either one,
quick.
thanks. How are you, Tom?
Dug out.
Yeah.
I had perfect timing when
Yeah?
I went to got back from going to lunch and the car was there and so I pulled the windshield wipers out so they don't freeze.
Yeah?
I went out to get in the car.
Icy, wasn't it?
Close and shut. I finally got one word.
Isn't it amazing how fast it changed? I was out today, it's the only day I'm not working. And beans on the phone. Anyway, it's nuts, so I... And I tried to put it off, whether it was going to get better as the day went on. And it appeared to get better, but the reality is, it's not icy.
Yeah.
I went to the grocery store, and just for that short, relatively short amount of time, I was icy.
We're gonna go ahead and take the picture. And
We are.
if we get another opportunity, we'll take a better one.
Oh, well.
Because you look awfully.
I want to sit in the back.
Wasn't intended, but
Yes, did.
I thought it was good enough.
Well, like this.
You're going to be a little bit higher.
Oh, and then the plow came by.
No matter what.
Well, just like they haul you to Seattle and lay out on the table, like what they do in Seattle, they
You never
lay
get
people
it
out on the table, covered in food. So that's what we're asking for.
Oh, no.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this.
No, I'm not trying to hide this.
Okay, go.
I'm just think I look.
Sorry, now look. Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, this is.
Let me outside.
Everybody looks good, they do. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's take another just to make sure we get everybody smiling. Here we go.
I love you, Nancy.
I love you too. Looking good. One more. Are you shooting?
Nancy.
No flashes.
No flash.
Shoot.
Okay, can we do a funny one?
Like I said, I'll do another.
We have no sense of humor here.
What?
Logged in. That would be a really,
Good. Oh,
I can't, that would make this job 10 times harder. At least have something.
Can. My memory isn't that good, Val.
Typically, we can do this.
There's an activity.
timing.
Who's there?
Kleenex tonight. You know that?
It's about you're about as bad as Alexa's joke. You know, I have that Alexa. Now every day she says, I have a joke for you. Really? Well, they're horrible jokes.
All right, good evening, everyone. We'll open the meeting, and all counselors are present. Agenda review, we have an additional agenda item, Order 16212, and so I need a motion to move that onto the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of moving it on? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Third item on the agenda is approval of minutes of November 14th, 2016. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval. Second.
Anyone have any comments, corrections? Additional? Nope. All right, I will take a vote on approval of minutes. All those in favor? Voted?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It was
I'm
the
making you
minutes.
guys
They
just
were
wait
okay as
longer.
far
I didn't vote because I wasn't there.
Okay. So one abstention. Everybody else voted?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to public hearings. Public hearing A, to consider a vitulers license for Woodman's Brewing Company LLC, doing business as Orono Brewing Company, 20 Main Street. This was continued from November 14th. Short interlude.
I apologize for that. I'm Dave Mylan. I'm the Director of Community Development here in Orono. And this is, as you know, this was a license that was continued from last month. And I just wanted to briefly give you a reason why it was, just so we understand where some of these, because it was new for me, frankly. And as a prior state liquor inspector, this was interesting because I frankly didn't know it. The reason why this got held up is that there was a question about the difference in the types of licenses for brewing companies versus Class A restaurants and other types of liquor establishments. And one of the things that I learned last week, talking with some of my former workmates, is that if you have a brewing license, you don't need to have any other type of liquor license to sell your own brand of alcohol. So we have 3 brewing companies in town. So all they need to be able to serve alcohol at their facility is just their manufacturing license. As long as they're going to sell just the stuff that they make themselves. And the Bear Brew is the exception to it, is that they choose to sell other people's product as well as their own, and as a result of that, there's a special class called a Permit 43 that allows them to do that. They're a little bit different than everybody else in town, but they're the only ones. So the question is, if you have and I guess some of these licensees have been doing both. They've been getting both licenses and that they didn't, in the past, didn't necessarily need. And so everyone been kind of getting back on track as to where they really needed to be. And so we're kind of streamlining this as we go forward. So the Woodman's Brewing Company, LLC, doing business as Orono Brewing Company, is that they don't need to have a liquor license from us. All they get is they get their manufacturing license from the state itself, but they need a vitulers license in order to be able to sell food and other parts of business.
Okay.
So I hope that's not clear as mud.
So they had a liquor license last year.
Correct.
Right, because it said it expired on December 1st.
Correct. It was a tavern license.
That was my confusion.
Well, and it was for me as well, because again, in my former life, they needed a tavern license as well as a manufacturing license, but that's been done away with.
They had a license that they didn't need.
That's correct.
Okay, we're correcting that now.
Great. Does anyone wish to speak either for or against the issuing of this license? None? Move to public hearing B, to consider a victualer's license for Permaculture Inn, 42 Mill Street.
Okay, Code Enforcement Officer Bill Murphy did an inspection with the state health inspector at this facility, and during that inspection, they found that there were 6 items that needed to be installed on the property in order to be able to successfully pass the state license, for this application. And so, other than that, all taxes and fees have been paid, and so staff is asking you to consider approving it as a conditional license. That the condition was that they would have to get these their state licenses in order before they would be allowed to do this. This simply allows you to act on it tonight and not have to come back rather than tabling it. That's another option you have, is you could table it and come back at a future date. But Bill is working with them and with Jen Springer, the state inspector, to get what they need in order to be able to open up with this license.
So right now, they do not have a food handler's license?
That is correct.
And what's the process for them getting the food handler's license?
There are 6 items from the state. The state health inspector has to issue that permit, not us.
Is there any time frame involved in this?
Did you recommend
I recommended that you condition it upon the successfully getting all of the permits and licenses.
Oh, wow.
As long as they do that by March 15th.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be hanging out there forever, but as we go through the holiday season, if the owner did a great job and got everything done, we wouldn't have enough time to notice this public hearing and turn it around for the January meeting, and we have some delays in February. So I just thought that give you the option of going to March, but that's totally up to you.
So, as it stands now, they can't open until the final inspection of the state.
They can't open and provide food to the public. There are certain the license that they have allows them to do other things other than food.
Well, I'd move to condition the...
Public hearing.
Right.
But I like the way
All
you
in
think.
due time.
Seeing as it's the public part of the, does anyone wish to speak for or against the license? Claudia?
Hi, I'm Claudia Loud. I'm the person at the Permaculture Inn at 42 Mill Street. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if I have to go through this whole story about what the Permaculture Inn and what permaculture does and all of that. But I did want a few salient points, as they would say. I talked to Jen, the inspector, the food inspector, and right now, so permaculture, it's a lot about community, and it's a lot about education. And so, actually, I might as well read this, because I wrote it. So it's like one time, you might as well go there. So my name's Claudia Loud. I currently live at 42 Mill Street. I've done so for approximately 13 years. I'm a holder of both a permaculture design certificate and an advanced permaculture design certificate from 2007 from my Australian teachers, Charles and Julia Yelton, who are currently in Tasmania. I'm also a university-educated chemical engineer from both the University of Maine and Western Michigan University, and my specialty was processed chemicals for the pulp and paper industry. In the time, I've owned the double lot fronting on both 42 Mill Street and Oak Street. I've grown the outside of the property to be, it's been for 10 years, so there's both inside and outside. It's a building example of green engineering. So when I purchased the home, I knew, in the lot which I currently live in, I knew I was buying a property within the Village Commercial District. I've been, of course, faithfully paying all the taxes, including the Village District tax for many years, that I knew I'd someday be locating a business here. I've raised 3 children at 42 Mill Street. One's a graduate at University of Maine, another one graduates in May 2016, and then there's a possible freshman going in there at 26 in fall. All of them are products of the town of Orono school system. All have been well-educated within that school system. In fact, I expect that I know a few people here because I've had this decade plus of living within downtown and having children in the public school system. Now, each of them are continuing their own respective lives, and it's time for me to rethink the use of 42 Mill Street and give attention to other areas of life that I feel are important. So I want to state for the record that I think Orono is a very pretty river town. It has an immense beauty, and it's quite a remarkable hidden gem within the state of Maine and New England, and I'm a proud member of the Beautification Committee, which for me continually improves the visual appeal of Orono. So talking a little bit about permaculture. Permaculture is a term coined by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. Both are from Australia. This is one of the books. It was in response of a degraded environment that Bill Mollison could see of signs in Australia in the 1970s. So one of the things that I've been doing is having a permaculture club, and I expect to be doing more of that. And some of the sharing details and the principles of permaculture, they have 12. One is to observe and interact, catch and store energy, obtain a yield, apply self-regulation, use and value renewable resources and services, produce no waste, design from patterns to details, integrate rather than segregate, use small and slow solutions, use and value diversity, use edges and value the marginal, creatively use and respond to change. So, in coming here tonight, I had expected to ask about opening a small tea room for 20 people and serving light fare that I would cook in the commercial kitchen at 42. I'm following the last principle, which is I'm creatively responding to change. So, and having Jen, the kitchen inspector, come with Bill Murphy this previous Friday, we had a walkthrough, and we saw things that the state would need to have to comply for the specification of serving the public, basically public wandering into my establishment. Some of those requirements seem to include undoing some of the beautifully created house parts. This location, 42 Mill Street, is a beautiful 3-story Italianate house, which historically had been owned by some of the original owners of Parks Hardware. So those requirements, some barriers needed to be constructed and a few sinks needed to be installed, are rather straightforward, but I'm currently not today happy with my non-current permaculture design for the kitchen rebuild. One of the best things about permaculture design is it goes for the exquisite solution. That's the solution with the least amount of resources, with the highest amount of function and beauty. So, in having a discussion with Jen today, some of the points that she said. I currently have a licensable breakfast kitchen for the permaculture and bed and breakfast guests. That's 3 rooms, five people, 3 beds, 5 people. That's what I could serve breakfast to. I also have an acceptable facility where I can teach cooking and other permaculture kitchen curriculum to permaculture students and to anyone. That's not something that you need a license for. And I expect to be marketing the Permaculture Inn as a place for both of those things. I can also hold events there that are catered not by me, that somebody else caters in. And the state of Maine can hold my application for a food establishment up to a year, asking that. While I investigate better and higher functioning kitchen design, I was expecting that I'd be coming back to the council when that future has been completed. So part of what I'm looking for is a design that will incorporate some outdoor water, which could be more seasonal. So I might have to ask, instead of March, to have it go till June or something along that lines, because I need plumbers to come and do outside and inside water. Part of the ethics of permaculture is the ethics of care of self, care of all species, and return all waste back to the planet. These are important ethics which I feel have a very important place in American society, simple and straightforward. So, I was going to say about in the days of rapid climate change, what's already happening in the Gulf of Maine, we need fun and easy education which can make a difference. That's what permaculture education is to me. I said I'd be able to incorporate permaculture into almost every aspect of my life. The implementation part of permaculture is an important piece. There is a lot to do for design, teaching people design, but I feel implementation is very important. And it's been an important piece of my own personal happiness because of the direct results I've found from my own actions. So this education is open and available to all ages. So on my own lot, it includes peach, cherry, apple, and pear trees. I also grow grapes, hops, kiwis, hazelnuts, chokeberries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, and mushrooms. I also have 2 small hoop houses for annual vegetables and a small herb garden, along with many other pollinators, species of wildflowers. I've had both ducks and bees. I compost much of the waste generated at 42 Mill Street. I use biodynamic principles and have great results, and I often try innovative ways to save energy. I currently have a root cellar in my basement, photovoltaic panels on my roof awaiting a new installation and a design, a not yet built innovative rainwater catchment for summer uses, and my limited civil engineering work has me looking at newer, greener ways to have built landscape that work for all species. So this is a new education for our times, but Maine has already been a leader in this education. UMaine previously sponsored students to travel to Hawaii and Sicily to create permaculture designs with my Australian teachers and other friends that I taught with the University of Maine at. Currently, we have a University of Maine Terrell House, which houses a student-sponsored permaculture living and learning house, and I've collaborated with those students in the past, and with the new student group, I expect more collaboration. In other parts of Maine, such as Portland, Rockland, Norway, and Brunswick, there's been more local households and communities where this education has been offered and it flourishes. I expect to be offering both university-sponsored and community-based education settings. We can expect permaculture, eco-art, and music, along with other social events such as film and workshops, to be part of the upcoming offerings. And I look forward to the future. So, that's it, my little spiel. Or maybe not so little.
You're very adventurous.
Well, it's been actually something I've been working on for a long time. It's sort of my uber green engineering that now, for whatever reason, maybe the paper industry going out of business, we're looking at things in new ways. And this has been an education that has been very valuable to me personally. And I find very much in Maine, it's been like the largest meetup group, one of the largest meetup groups in the world, happens to be in Portland, Maine, and it's called the Resiliency Hub, and it's all based with permaculture, and it has many thousands of people, and they have different events all the time, and I've been busy with my children, to be honest, and so now my children are all grown up, and they don't need me to be quite so busy with them, so I can put some more energy to this kind of work. So that's what I'm here for, and that's what I wanted to tell you a little about. And definitely my house is very beautiful. And I want to integrate it so that I have a beautiful kitchen in it that works for everybody. So I don't want to destroy some of the character of the house and have all the higher uses that I want and see that need to come. So that's what I am.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Claudia. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the issuing of this license? Hearing none, I'll close public hearing B, move on to public hearing C, to consider a Class 11 restaurant, lounge, spirituous, vinous, and malt liquor license and vitulers license for Tijuana Margaritas Restaurant and Watering Hole, 15 Mill Street.
Good evening. All the inspections have been completed, tax and fees have been paid, state licenses are current, and staff is recommending approval.
Does anyone wish to speak for or against this license? Hearing none. Close public hearing C, and we'll move on to acknowledgements by council members. Judy, have anything?
No.
Jeff?
I'm all set.
Tom?
I just want to say I'm not quite sure what I want to say. Okay, season's greetings. Maybe that'll cover all the various options, but my personal observation today, I saw people driving better than usual for the first snowstorm. So we're learning, maybe.
Clint?
I want to say great job on last Monday. You guys did awesome. The staff did a great job. The lights, whatever it's called.
Light up the
Light
night.
But it was fun. The fireworks were great. Every bit of it was great. Great job.
Tom? Sam?
No, just second the sentiments for Light Up the Night. It was fantastic. So.
Great. All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. I don't think we have any. So moving on to the consent agenda. Yes, I'll take a motion, but does anyone want to move anything off the consent agenda before I take a motion? All right, hearing none, could I have a motion to move the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, moving on to new business. Order 16207, order adopting ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono ordinances, Chapter 18 Land Use, Section 1831 Definitions, Section 1861 Administration and Enforcement, and Section 18131 Home Occupations to include standards for home office, home workshop, and home business, and an amendment to Section 18106E Schedule of Uses to include these three categories. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Hey, no, you can go.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the final step in this process. This is one of the amendments recommended by the updated comprehensive plan to streamline home occupations in Orono and provide standards for these categories. I should say there was also a fourth category called homestays, but that's dealt with under a bigger category called travel accommodations, but it is also referred to in this section on home occupations. So as I just remind you, this has been through public hearing at the planning board, recommendation to the council, public hearing here, several discussions at council committee, and now it's in front of you for possible actions.
Judy, it's kind of in the middle of something. So does anyone have any questions or comments about this home office, home workshop, home business? We've been working on it quite a long period of time. I think it should streamline for some businesses and hopefully start some new businesses in town. If no one else has any questions or comments, I will take a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Order 16208, order adopting ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono ordinances, Chapter 13 Environment, Article 2 Noise Control Ordinance, Sections 13-52 Definitions and 13-53 Sound Level Limits concerning noise-sensitive areas. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Now,
Yes, this is a housekeeping, I guess it's an important amendment, but it's a housekeeping amendment to address an issue, an ambiguity in the ordinance that Dave Mylan and Chief Ewing pointed out and asked be clarified, and we discussed it with council in committee. The situation where this is, the ambiguity is the definition of a noise-sensitive area, and what the sound levels should be with respect to that area. The way the language of the ordinance is written, it makes it sound like anything within X feet, 300 feet of a noise-sensitive activity has to be at all times at these more stringent sound levels. even if at the property line of that noise-sensitive activity, the level was meeting those stringent standards or even less. This is contrary to the way DEP has its ordinance standards and the way that, at least I've always understood what was intended here, but the ambiguity was enough that Chief Ewing, who enforces the noise ordinance, and Dave Mylan, who deals with economic development matters that sometimes generate noise, sound levels, wanted dealt with. So this would clarify that the standard applies at the property boundary line of the noise-sensitive activity during the time when that land use that houses the noise-sensitive activity, such as a church or is active, a school or a church, for example. A nursing home would always be active, or a hospital, if we had one, would always be active, but during the periods of activity, there could be no noise that would impinge, that would be above the level, cause the sound level to be higher than these more stringent standards at that land use activity's property line.
Okay, I think I got that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Oh. So basically, as long as you're at the line and you're doing what you're supposed to do, then...
Yeah, so if somebody was in the village district were having music as entertainment, that sound level would have to meet the standards for the village commercial district and would have to meet all the standards that would otherwise apply. In addition, the sound level, once it reached the property line of the church or the school or the noise-sensitive land use, would have to, could be no higher than a more stringent level.
Great. All right. Yes.
Just for the record, so that everybody, it's clear, can you explain what happens when a noise-sensitive activity moves into an area, so it's a new use? We talked about this in committee, but I just want...
Yes, the activity, the sound-generating activity would, of course, could continue, would be grandfathered, it's a legitimate use, so it would be grandfathered.
And the new use just has to put up with the...
Would have to know it. I guess when they came in, they would have to be informed that they're coming into a district or an area that has such sound activity.
The only thing I would just highlight, I think Evan has said it, but I don't know if it has been like hit home.
Okay.
It's not just the boundary line question. The other thing that they're clarifying is that, for example, with the church, that it's the noise-sensitive regulatory limits would only apply when there is a noise-sensitive activity happening in the church.
Have to be in use.
So it's not just that the building is there. There has to be some activity. Yeah.
All right. I will take a vote on Order 16208. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 16209, order accepting that the parcel located at 148 College Avenue in Orono and also described as map 19-002, lot 20 on the town of Orono tax maps was inadvertently removed from the medium-density residential zoning district and reclassified in error as being located within the university zoning district during the digitization of the town's tax maps, and further directing the town manager to remedy this error by updating the tax maps to reflect that map 19-002 lot 20 is within the medium-density residential zone. Take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
All right.
Yes. So this comes before you as for a process as described by the town attorney. We believe that there was a mapping error that arose as the town moved from one form of map making to a geographic information system, digital form of map making. And this was missed at the time that those digital maps were created, despite, best efforts of seeing everything. The reason we believe it's an error is that in 2001, a map which we believe to be accurate showed this particular parcel to be in the medium-density residential district, adjacent to the university district. In 2010, following the rezoning of the town that included the creation of the low-density residential district and some alteration, some modification of other zoning lines, at that time, we were beginning to move into the digital era and we had a GIS consultant prepare the tax map for us, but the zoning layer did not match up precisely with the underlying parcel layer. Two different systems and two different reference points. So she did her very best to try to make everything fit, but sometimes it required what they called rubber sheeting, trying to pull things this way or that way to try to make them match as much as possible. And on that 2010 map, you can see where lines don't always coincide, and you can still tell what was intended for the most part, but they don't always coincide. And one of those situations was on this lot where the university district bled over into the property at 148 Main Street. Then the next iteration of maps following, I think it probably followed the couple contract zones for Webster Mill property and the St. Mary Church property. We had to go back and get those newly zoned lots onto the map, proper designation with the proper notes and so forth. And at that point, by that time, the technology had caught up, and the tax map layer that Sewell had was now digitized and could communicate more accurately with the parcel layer, with the zoning layer, and it got applied. But the mapping of 148 got interpreted by the GIS person at the company to be university district, and because it had been partially university and partly MDR, and it just all became university district without any petition by the property owner, without any public hearing, without any recommendation from the planning board, without going through any process. So I believe this to be the so. Now, this evening, for the first time, I've met Dr. Tom Van Edestein, who was the owner of the property. I had been talking with a person who was looking at possibly buying the property and asked some questions about it, and I communicated with that person by phone and by email, and informing that person that it was my belief that was not properly zoned as a university district. I think that was an error that needed to be corrected, but this is the first time that Dr. Van Edestein has had the opportunity to talk, and we talked for a few minutes before the meeting. He asked if it would be possible to have this tabled so that he could better understand the situation. I've explained to him what I've just explained to you. He's wondering, are there earlier maps that go back that might show that the 2001 map was an error and that it really was meant to be university? He can speak for himself, he has no personal knowledge that it should be something else, but he just wants to be assured that what I've said is correct, and that he's got counsel advising him, or at least he can ask counsel, is everything, he doesn't understand what zoning, he's not a zoning expert, and he'd like just a chance to talk with somebody. So he's made the request. I said that he could make that request directly to you. He asked if I could also convey it, so I'm glad to do that. I would say at any case that I certainly don't object as your planner to you tabling it, so that people can feel like they've understood the situation completely. I would say that I would advise you not to accept any zoning petition or development petition on reliance on this being the university district, because I don't believe it is. But I think that request is a reasonable request if you want to entertain that.
I'd entertain a motion to.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Thank you. What do we have for resources to, in other words, do we have old tax maps? How far?
They're not technical, they're zoning maps. We have zoning maps, and I don't know how far back they go. They're in the vault. There is an archive of ordinances that have been repealed, replaced, updated, and that's where I found these two maps. Because I was looking, that's where I went to look to see what happened here, or is this correct? I just didn't know. It didn't, because for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, the university district covers land owned by the university. And when I talked to this fellow who had called me, he said it was not owned by the university, so it just raised an alert in my mind. So I went, I think there may be earlier maps, and we can go look at that. I don't know for sure. But, it's fair to go look and see what we have in the archives.
So is fraternity or property owned by the university here, or is the fraternity property owned by?
Some is private, and some is leased on university land, and some is privately owned.
A lot of those houses are owned by, the land is owned by the university with 99-year leases.
Because I'm not, that property for me is something that I just vaguely remember. There were fraternity houses that are no longer there. I don't know how far down they went. I don't even if it affects this property. That's the only reason I even question it.
I think it's reasonable that we just research it to find out.
When we discussed this in committee, we mentioned that it would be a good idea if we put on every assessor's record for every lot that we put a field that designated the current zoning. So, and I think we agreed that we were going to do that. Is that something we were going to add to our assessing database?
I think, yes, we can add that to the assessing database, but also on the GIS map right now, if you click on the parcel identifier, it will tell you what zone it's in. This one is mislabeled, but it is there currently. And when we were getting ready to embark on a data collection process for assessing, we'll be able to make that change on permanent property cards, which will be a tangible,
Okay, and then just for my own education, in a real estate transaction, when is the zoning designation of the property that's being sold or bought, when is that revealed, or is that an issue for title insurance? I mean, the buyer has an understanding that it's zoned X.
Right, that's why it was very important, and it's why I in consultation with Kate Grossman, the town's attorney, I told her what I believed to be the situation, that I didn't think the council had ever zoned at university, at least for 15 years. And I believe the 2001 map is probably accurate. I mean, it makes sense what it is, appears to be accurate. So I made very clear that to the person who I was communicating with, a potential buyer, I don't know how interested they were, or they were making inquiries, that do not rely on the map. And she said, as long as you've told the buyer not to rely on the zoning, that we're good. We've done our job. I don't know who else tells people. This young man did his homework. He called and said he assumed it had to be rezoned. He believed it to be a medium, not zoned.
Communicated with him, I thought it would have to be too. So
Yeah.
I just assumed that it was not.
Right.
But I didn't know. When I bought my house, I was never told what district I lived in.
Well, I don't believe I've owned several houses, and I don't believe I've ever been told what the zoning was, but I was never on the boundary of the zoning district either, so.
I think the situation, when people are buying a property for the use it's been in, like a home or an office building, then they assume it's properly zoned or wouldn't be there. If they're buying the property with the idea of changing the use, then they have, they simply,
Due diligence.
the due diligence would would call upon them to make sure that what they want to do that's different is allowed.
That's why I told him to call you. because you would know.
I guess, like, as I mentioned when we talked about this in committee, I'm just concerned that we have a liability here that in the, not in this case necessarily, but in the future, that whenever a transaction occurs on a zoning boundary, that there's always this possibility that exists. And do we have a liability by publishing a map that says it's X when?
I don't know that we can talk to the attorney, but I think in this case, we do not.
Yeah,
Because we
I
haven't,
would agree
we've
with
gone through this, we've launched this, we've been through this process as soon as we learned about it. And let the person who was inquiring about it know.
So,
I guess I'm just wondering, is there anything else that we can do as terms of a policy or a procedure or something to eliminate this possibility?
Well, we just certainly try to, in the first instance, make sure the map's accurate. And I will say, during this process, we did, Ruth Vaughn was kind of taking some lead on this, and she caught 3 or 4 errors. And we went back to the company and had those errors corrected, during the review process. They did a good job and said, please take a careful look. We took a careful look and found those. We did not see this one.
Okay.
Maybe we could ask if there are other communities, what they have, what they do, or other than, going through and checking everything again. I guess that's a possibility.
I think that's what we have to do, is go through and just check everything again.
Well, and we will, in the data collection process, we can make that an additional thing that they do, I would think.
it is a field on the property card, so it will be filled in.
Well, do you have any more?
No, I just want to get back to voting.
We have a motion to table. We need a second.
Second.
All right. So is there any more discussion? Sophie?
I think Nancy would ask you to table to a period, so January 9th or the February meeting, one of the two.
Evan, what's a reasonable time to research this?
Tom, from my point of view, I can certainly do it before the January meeting, but Tom, I think, would like to talk with council or advisors.
Sure. Please.
No, you need to come here.
So we can record it, sir.
Thank you for allowing me in tonight. What are my options? Are there any options? Did I mention that I hear say January and/or February? Could I ask for the February date, and then that would give me time to fathom through this?
I think the
Please
only
and thank
issue
you.
is if there's a transaction pending, so it's completely open.
Can we make a note on the tax map?
We can make a note on the tax map, I guess, but the owner has now been informed of this question. And so I think there's every reason to believe that nobody should or could rely on the current zoning as shown on the map to be accurate. So I think if you want to do it until February, anybody doing a transaction, all they need to do is listen to this hearing or this session. But I think Dr. Van Edstein would certainly tell people that the zoning is in question, and if you want to use it as a single-family home or a homestay or home occupation, yes, it's all allowed. If you want to use it for something you can only do in the university district, it's probably going to require a zone change, but that's being researched now, and a decision will be made later.
Perfect, yes.
Great.
Amend the motion to February?
Okay, maybe, should Clint amend it, seeing if he did it, or does it?
Can I just make it over again? I agree.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second to table order 16209 to the February meeting.
Right.
All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
So it doesn't matter, I mean, we can retable it again if something comes up, so
Sure.
this is not an end-all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Great, you too. All right, moving on to Order 16210, order adopting a 6-month moratorium ordinance on retail marijuana establishments and retail marijuana social clubs. I'll take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Who gets to talk
That's
about
me.
the moratorium? Oh, wow.
That is me. This moratorium follows the path that several communities, I think, since our last meeting, I was able to confirm that Bangor, along with the city of Brewer, have enacted this ordinance. And what it is allowing is an opportunity for the council to have time after the, or during, one of the two, the enacting of the retail question 1, to have time to go ahead and use its home rule authority to consider regulating the sale, the retail sale of marijuana, and retail marijuana social clubs. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but it means that you'll be able to take a look at what the newly enacted law, state law, looks like, and then decide whether or not you think that works for Orono or if you should restrict it further. So the idea is that this would go from 6 months from October. I think we talked about it, October 17th. And if the state has held up its enactment of the law, you could renew for an additional 6 months at that point. But what this does is it makes sure if somebody comes in right now with an application, as soon as it becomes law, we would be required to process that application with the rules that we have in place, which we don't have any. So this would just allow us to be able to say we're not accepting applications and you to go through a rulemaking process here with an ordinance.
So by my calculations, that's April 17th? Does that sound right?
Is there any understanding at this point, at this early point anyway, in terms of how a municipality could regulate, in what dimensions can they regulate this sort of activity? So it's
I
just,
don't think there's a full understanding of that, Jeff. I do know that Maine Municipal Association is taking this on to provide some technical assistance to municipalities. So I would expect that as the state law is enacted, we'll have a much better understanding of the scope of our regulatory kind of window. Because as you know, there are things that we can regulate and things that we can't. And I think we'll have a much better idea and hopefully some model ordinances from MMA to help us along the way.
and I presume that we would not be allowed to tax the activity in any way.
Now, would the state of Maine ever give us the opportunity to do a local tax?
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 16210. All those in favor? Jeff, you're in favor? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking the other way.
He was early in his favor.
All right, moving on to Order 16211. Order casting the Town of Orono's ballot for one individual to serve on the Municipal Review Committee Board of Directors from January 1, 2017 to December 31, 2019. I'll take a motion, please.
Second?
All right. Now Sophie will explain.
Why, hello. I bet you guys were not thrilled to have to think about MRC again after everything that we went through this spring. But every year you are asked to cast the Town of Orono's 40 votes. They all have to be cast for one person. But for a candidate running for the MRC Board of Directors, just as in full disclosure, I currently serve on that board and act as the organization's treasurer. I provided you with some background to let you know about the people that I knew about. That was not designed in any way to tell you who you should vote for. This is your choice. But we're embarking on a really important time. We're putting together this new facility and spending a great deal of membership money in doing that. So I think it's important to have folks at the helm to lead us through this effort.
Couple of questions. We have 40 votes to cast, right? And is that based on population or something?
No, it's based on tonnage, the tonnage that we
Tonnage,
deliver.
Okay. And then one of the terms is a short term. Who ends up with the short term? The fourth vote getter?
Yep, the fourth
Gets the
vote
short
getter
term?
gets the 2-year term, everybody else gets a 3-year term, the top 3.
And then how many more votes are outstanding over this update that you gave us?
About 25% of the vote, which would put it,
Reflected here?
yeah, that's about 70% of the vote is almost 75% is
It's
reflected there.
Reflected in this tally?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you, we are one of the only outstanding big vote holders. There are a handful of us, so I would not,
Are you allowed to recommend?
I can do whatever you would like, but
And do we distribute our 40 votes, or do we put them all on one person?
they can only go to one person.
I think because you're familiar with it, it makes more sense for you to make a recommendation to us. and
Well,
then
I'm willing to make a motion. I move that we cast our votes in favor of Susan Lassard.
What is this?
So,
Or what, do I have to say this a certain way?
Yeah, it's in the thing if you look on your thing.
So you need to amend the motion to, no? No? Okay, all right. So you move
I
that
move that
council
we-
cast the town's votes
put
for.
Votes on, for Susan Lassard.
All right.
I would still like to hear Sophie's recommendation.
Okay. I need a second for that first.
Just because we second it doesn't mean it means we're gonna have a
Right. It
discussion.
says procedurally, the order will be changed to include, after receiving a second, discussion would begin. So are you seconding?
I'm gonna second it and then I'm gonna counter it, but that's
Okay.
okay.
All right.
So, I had the distinct pleasure of serving with Sue Lassard on the MRC board when I first became a MRC board member, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago. She's amazing, and she does her homework. She has a wonderful perspective. As the former town manager in Hamden, she definitely understands host community issues. So I think having Sue on our board would only be a win for MRC. Having said that, when I look at the vote tally, I cannot, where she is the second place vote getter right now, adding 40 votes to her tally is not necessarily where I would recommend you go. You're welcome to do that. When I think about the MRC board right now, we have some people that have the history with the Fiber Right project that have given a lot of technical guidance that are kind of on the bubble. And right now I would see Sue as more of a shoe-in given where we are in the vote tally. But that is... I would recommend that you put your vote with Tony Smith, just because I think he is he brings a lot of technical expertise through the public works. But just, again, you've asked for a recommendation, but you guys do whatever you want. This is not my vote.
It's your wisdom that we ask.
One of the people that I found interesting, I believe his name was Bowman.
Yep.
And I thought that he would, and again, and this is kind of one of my old saws, is that, and I can appreciate the need for somebody that how nice it would be to have somebody that is familiar with what's happening, because it would make it so much easier to go forward. But I think that it also is very nice to have somebody who maybe is looking from, hasn't been involved in the process, that might ask some very critical questions at this time. But my fear always is, when you have this group that has so much, that's so solid, and they've been through this battle, and I'm afraid they can end up with blinders. So and not in a negative way, but just the vision maybe not as broad as it could be. So I'm always in favor of fresh blood when you get the opportunity to do it. Sound like it had an interesting background and done some things in Oakland that sound kind of, it has an appreciation for waste disposal and something different that they did that was kind of nice. So I would look at that person myself strongly.
I absolutely agree I see that point very much, but I think there's a critical juncture right now with the fiberite moving forward, where I think it's not a time to, I think it seems a little risky right now to go with a dark horse that we don't know if they like mud or not, and it's been raining a lot, so I think, yeah, that was a Guys and Dolls reference. Glassing it up a little. So I would, with all due respect to both nominations, or both supportive statements at the end, I would put my full support behind Tony Smith for the reasons that Sophie mentioned, as well as the familiarity fiberite as we're moving forward on that.
I agree, Sam.
I do too.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a vote on Susan Lassard. All those in favor?
I like Susan too.
All right. All those opposed of putting our 40 behind Susan? All right. So Susan did not get our 40 votes, so.
I move for Tony Smith to be our candidate.
Second.
So, I'm sorry, I was talking to our secretary, so you motion.
I moved to cast our 40 votes for Tony Smith.
Okay, and
Seconded by Clint.
Thank you, sir. You take over my jobs. Any more discussion? I'll take a vote. All those in favor of Tony Smith? All right, and all those opposed? Okay. 6-1. So Tony Smith gets our 40 votes.
I'd just like to say, I'm very impressed by the number of people who were interested in this challenging assignment and the quality of the candidates. There was a great pool of candidates there. And, it's nice to know that we have folks that are willing to step up and do this work.
All right, we're moving on to future agenda items and items of, okay. Oh, right, we got another order. Sorry, always do that. Order 16-212, order authorizing the treasurer to file a waiver of foreclosure of the tax lien mortgages on real estate for a tax assessed against the following properties to the town of Orono dated June 12, 2015, and recorded in the Penobscot Registry of Deeds unless paid prior to the foreclosure date of December 14, 2016. Map 18, lot 47-21, 21 Choppy Drive, and map 19, lot 3, map 19-3-40-20, 20 Austin Drive. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah. Aren't these recurring addresses?
I don't know if those ones are, I'm gonna guess
seem familiar.
they are,
They seem
yeah.
very familiar.
Yeah, and the issue here, Judy, is we never like to waive foreclosure because state law is very clear. Everybody's supposed to pay their fair share. However, in this particular case with these two properties, if we take them, instead of being able to recoup the tax owed to the town, it will cost us probably as much as is owed to the town, if not more,
And I
to
appreciate,
move them.
trust me, I appreciate that, but I also don't like that sense that someone's taking advantage of a situation. At some point in time, we might want to stop that, because if word gets out, what's the incentive to pay your taxes in this situation?
So is the issue that the property is not valued at the amount that the tax is owed?
No, the issue is that these are both mobile homes sitting on rented land. In order for us to move these homes, number one, if people are living in them, one of them I think is lived in, one I think is vacant. You can't just latch onto it and move it, so there's a process you have to go through. And the thought is, even on a vacant one, And I have experience where we actually foreclosed in, without realizing it, on a parcel right after, I don't think I'd been here for very long. And I think what was owed on it was in the neighborhood of $1,000 because mobile homes on rented land don't tend to have a very high tax bill. And it cost us almost $7,000 to move it. So what was determined is it wasn't in the best interest of the town. This comes to the council because it's a council decision. The only options available are to foreclose on it and eat the cost and go through, if somebody's living in it, a legal process, or to waive foreclosure, not take ownership. Where this comes back to haunt people is if somebody tries to move the trailer legally, they cannot get the tax collector's signature on the form that they are supposed to have whenever they transport a mobile home, until all of the taxes are paid. So those are the only options that are afforded to us, and honestly, it's totally up to council, how you choose to vote.
But the lien doesn't extinguish and interest continues.
The lien does not extinguish and interest continues. It simply is not tax acquired. So we're not forgiving the debt, we're not foreclosing on it.
And,
Which
and
mean-
what kind of situation does this put the owner of the land in? I mean, can they move, they can't move the trailer either, can they? 'Cause they don't
Not
have
without
title
a
to it.
process. I mean, there's a process that they have to go through.
There is a process so they can get the trailer removed at whose expense?
Probably their own, but there is a process with lost property. If people are living in it, there's an eviction process. So, but it becomes the property owners. And I'll just, in the past, in my previous town I previously worked in, we foreclosed on a trailer and ended up spending $300 a month on lot rent until we could get it straightened out so we could pull the
Yeah.
trailer. It cost us a lot more to deal with that than we would have ever seen in taxes.
Have we been in contact with the owner of the land to explain our position?
So I can tell you
Maybe
my
encourage
previous
them to-
experience is that they want us to foreclose. Here, even in Orono, talking with the park owners. They want us to foreclose so that on, especially the vacant one, we can pull it and they can re-rent the property. So we are doing what the owner could do on their own. We're doing at the cost of the taxpayers.
Okay, but have we had any communication with the owner and encouraging them to go ahead and get rid of the trailer at their own expense?
Oh. I've had that conversation
okay.
with, the folks who own one of these. I can't remember off the
Okay.
top of my head which goes with which, but,
Okay.
the other one I have not.
So do I understand it that the people who rent the land to the trailer have no obligation for that trailer? And in the town of Orono, there's a tax that's assessed to the trailer rather than the whole thing together.
So the land gets assessed to the property owner, especially in a mobile home park, which is where you see this. The land gets assessed to the property owner, and the mobile home is assessed on its own to the last known owner of the mobile home.
Is the assessed value of the lot compromised by the fact that there's an empty trailer on it? No?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I remember the situation where we inadvertently
Yeah.
foreclosed on a trailer and then had to pay a local salvage operator to remove it, and it was much more than was owed on it, I'm sure. So I'm glad that we're being alert to these situations, and when it looks like it is not in the town's interest, and it should be pretty infrequently that it's not in the town's interest, to waive foreclosure. I'm in favor of doing this.
I support that.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 16212. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, future agenda items and items of concern. Now we'll get to it. Clint, do you have any? Tom? Sam? Nope. Judy? Jeff?
I'll bring up my old saw about property that the town owns, that I think we're making progress on that in some way, but an inventory of it and declaring a public purpose for them, and if we can't declare a public purpose, we should liquidate them.
So, if I may, we actually are in the process of, there are two that have kind of come to the top of the list because people have expressed interest in them. Not saying that you would sell direct, but it's caused us to vet these two. We'll bring that to committee to decide if you want to send it out for public hearing to try to get rid of them. But right now, they're going through a staff process to determine if there is a particular reason why we own it, what benefit, if any, we would see in having it. So you'll see that likely in January committee for a discussion about whether or not you want to put those two out to a sealed bid, along with some tax acquired that I know needs to go out to sealed bid.
Mm-hmm.
Tom?
I'm good.
Sure.
Two quick questions. One thing, we spoke briefly by email about parklets, that sort of thing. Is that something that we should talk about in the future? And also I have a thing about the farmer's market being downtown.
We can absolutely talk about whatever you want to talk about, Sam.
I love it when you say
But,
that. So today we'll talk about Harry Potter.
So what I hear is farmer's market, and I think the parklet is going to come up as part of a discussion. We have the draft traffic study in. I'm going to distribute that on the 19th to you with a very high level, just the very high points. Rob Yerxa and Steve Sawyer, our traffic engineer that we use for this particular project, will be here on January 23rd to talk about downtown traffic flow, which I think was an item that council really wanted to have an understanding of before they talked about changing any traffic patterns, which would be affected by even the idea that's come forward by both you and other members of my staff for a temporary parklet as opposed to a permanent green space. It means a temporary place where the traffic is stopped, traffic is not allowed, with some pretty creative barrier type work. And
it could be like just consuming two or
Yep.
three parking spaces.
Yep.
Traffic would still flow.
Yep. So, the thought I had was, I think farmer's market we should address sooner as opposed to later. And the parklet, I think if people want to move forward with that, we should have a discussion. But it would seem to me that, at least for the parklet, I don't know what you want to talk about with the farmer's market, but at least with the parklet, I think you guys really want to see the traffic work first. So again, I would say you'll have those on the 19th of December with a plan for us to have an in-depth conversation with Rob Yerxa and our traffic engineer on January 23rd.
We could talk on the 19th maybe as well about the farmer's market possibly too, kind of thing, or I'll talk with you later about what we need to do when.
Yeah, I'm happy to put farmer's market on the agenda whenever. If it's not going to be affected by traffic, we could do it as early as Monday. And if it is something bigger, then we can schedule a time. Anything, whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you.
I may have missed this, but meeting dates around the holidays?
Yes, email went out to you today from Nancy. She recapped them all.
Yep.
But essentially, the week after
Christmas?
Christmas, nothing. And nothing on the
Before Christmas?
2nd. The week before Christmas, I think we have we have the Monday committee meeting, and we're going to talk about high-level parking study, maybe the farmer's market, depending on whether or not it's appropriate, and fire department budget. I need to make some changes in the fire department budget, and I need to move between a couple of different departments to do that, and I just need your approval for that. So those are the big items then. And then I think on the 22nd, we have a comp plan implementation meeting.
And I have to work until 6 that day.
Okay. December.
So we're gonna have
If
cake
we could
for
meet later, that'd be
Sam.
nice.
12:19 and 12:22. And then, where's
23 is Sam's birthday.
Sam? Yes.
And on the 22nd, can we meet
Okay.
at 6:30?
Okay.
What day was it, Judy?
On the 22nd, could we meet at 6:30?
22nd, that's fine.
Sorry.
If that works for council.
6:15? Can we do 6:15?
Well, we can try 6:15.
Can we go 6:15?
Again.
We said 6:20. 6:12.
So let's go.
It makes a difference on the back end, I think, if we can do it a little earlier.
The other thing I'm finding is, I know we're meeting more frequently for the comp plan implementation, but I'm finding we're able to keep them more reasonable in length. So the other question that I have for council is, I wasn't thinking about when we observed holidays, so I had scheduled a discussion about the assessing program and the data collection process project for January 2nd. That's a town holiday. And so I'd like to try to have the meeting on the 9th at 5:30, if at all possible, or 6. Take a quick break for maybe a sandwich and some soup, and then do the council meeting at 7. I don't anticipate that the January council meeting is going to last very long. But then again, it's all up to you. I just have one other, by way of update.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody is aware, but at council's direction, Josh Ewing and I continued to put feelers out to figure out if there was a way that we could try to address the school RSU's concern about traffic on Westwood. We actually we think we may have landed on a solution, which was a very old, I think the term the town attorney used was archaic law, antiquated law, something. But in state statute, they allow for the appointment of constables and special police officers. There is special, it's its own piece of the law. And we believe, on our cursory review, that that we could appoint an individual that isn't even necessarily our employee, so like a crossing guard, with very, very narrow police powers, like the only thing they can do is direct traffic. And if we do that, the only thing we'd have to do is train them to direct traffic.
Who pays them?
Huh?
Who pays them?
Right now, it's a contract that we have with Seaboard Security. And so we're paying them right now anyway, but they're not our employee, and I wouldn't want them as our employee. So we're working, I don't mean like that personally, I just mean the liability and the training of that type of employee. So right now, we're working, the city of Auburn has some material. They don't do this particular thing with their constables and special police officers. They do other things that, so we're trying to get their material to our attorney to see if we can craft an appointment sheet that will pass muster, that we could then give our insurance company to make sure that you and I and Josh all have the coverage that we need to if something bad were to happen. But if all of that falls in place and it is legal and we have insurance coverage, my next step would be to reach out to the school and let them know what we have found, and likely just move forward to try to do it and reach out to Seaboard. But I just want to make you aware that that is not something that just got swept away.
That is awesome. So creative. The other thing I wanted to bring up was that petitions for council positions and school board positions are available December 19th, I believe.
So nomination papers
Nomination
are available the 19th of December, and they're due back in late January 27th. And people who are interested in running just need to stop in downstairs. And if you can't stop in during regular business hours, just need to give Shelley Crosby, the town clerk, a call and make an arrangement to stop in outside of town office hours.
If someone was out of the area for a while?
I think those ones do have to be picked up in person, because I think you have to attest to something. But if somebody truly couldn't do that, I would really encourage them to call Shelley to see if there is a workaround.
Great.
You have to attest that you actually will run, you will serve if you're nominated.
But I think that's at the end, when you turn the papers in. Yeah. Who's up?
Jeff and I.
Oh, okay. You guys running?
Right. Move on to public petitions. All right, there's no public petitions, so moving on to public comments. Susan?
Hello.
You made it.
I've recently experienced something technologically where I don't know if it's pertaining to just myself or the entire vicinity of the town. Though I've spoken with technicians upon experiencing a malfunction with the technological piece of equipment. I spoke with technicians and they're telling me that this vicinity operates on a 2G network, which isn't quite accurate. This vicinity is 3G and 4G. Yet technicians have repeatedly insisted, no, that's a 2G network. It's an ongoing argument, though I thought I'd mention it because it might, since they're saying it's the entire vicinity, it might not be myself. I've spoken with companies, with service providers, and they've actually been phasing out the 2G network.
Susan, I
I don't know.
think from my experience that it depends on where you are in town. It's different. Because of the servers, because of the service providers.
I think they're misinforming me because the equipment was working like previously, and then it suddenly stopped working. So my hypothesis is that it's a programmer, someone generating an interference, someone generating malfunction. That's my.
It's really
my thought.
poor service in some areas, because I can tell you that you.
Well, I said it was
drive-
working previously.
Yeah.
In the same
It does,
vicinities.
It does, but then it doesn't, because even at the end of my driveway, all of a sudden something stops.
Hmm.
And then in the driveway it works. It's just a weird system, I think.
I don't know.
I don't know. You may have a valid claim.
But they're saying it's a 2G vicinity, and I've spoken with local companies, and 2G is actually getting phased out. It's a 3G, 4G vicinity. And they keep saying, no, it's 2G. I'm like, it's not LTE, 4G. 2, 3, 4.
Something.
BCD, no, I don't see a thing.
We all hear your frustration. We all go through it.
So, I don't know, wherever it's coming from, stop malfunctioning. Aside from that, I hope everyone has a happy holiday season.
Thank you very much, Susan, you too.
And see y'all next year.
I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So seconded.
All those in favor?
Yeah, just to let you know, I'm on vacation this afternoon.